Hello students, today we'll start a new chapter in social studies, that is weather, climate, heat zones and eclipses. People in different parts of the world have different lifestyles. This is mainly because of the difference in weather and climate condition. We'll talk about weather. The condition of atmosphere over a short period of time at any particular place is called weather. The state of different atmospheric elements like air temperature, precipitation, atmospheric pressure, winds, humidity, etc. at a particular place on any day determines the weather on that day. Weather is not constant. Now, climate can be defined as the average overall condition of the atmospheric elements over a larger region for a longer period of time. The climate of a place is permanent in nature because it is normally assessed by analyzing the weather condition of that place for about 35 years. Now, the difference between weather and climate. What is the difference between weather and climate? We'll talk about the time period. Now, weather is the condition of the atmosphere over a short period of time, while climate involves a longer period of time. And weather keeps on changing frequently, while climate is permanent in nature, it doesn't change. Now, factors that affect the climate of a place. The factors that affect the climate of a place is the distance from the equator, that is, the places which are near the equator receive direct rays of the sun and remain hotter than the places which are far away from the equator. And the sun rays falls vertically over the equator, but as we go towards the poles, the sun rays become slanted and therefore such places remain cooler than the places which are near the equator. The torrid zone is also one factor. The areas that lie on the either side of the equator between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn from the torrid zone. These areas are hot and humid throughout the year. We'll talk about the frigid zone, the areas that lie between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole and the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole form the frigid zones. These areas receive very little heat from the sun. These areas are very cold and are covered with snow throughout the year. The temperate zone, which lies between the torrid zone and the frigid zone in both the hemispheres, it has a moderate climate. Height above the sea level. The height of a place above the sea level is called its altitude. We like to go to the hill stations during summers. The reason is that hill stations have a higher altitude and so they remain cool in summers. We'll talk about the directions of the winds. Wind is the movement of air from one place to another. Direction of the wind influences the climate of a place. The wind also carries moisture. If the wind comes from a hot area, it increases the temperature of a place. But if the wind comes from a cold area, it makes the place cooler. Humidity, which refers to the amount of water vapor in the air. Humidity also affects the climate of a place. The wind which comes from the sea brings a lot of water vapor. Such winds bring rainfall and therefore coastal areas receive more rainfall than the other region. Distance from the sea. Coastal areas are neither hot nor cold. They have moderate climate. Sea breeze keeps the coastal areas cool in summers, while in winters the same sea breeze keeps them warm. Places away from the sea are very hot in summers and extremely cold in winters. We'll talk about eclipses. An eclipse is an astronomical event that occurs when an astronomical object is temporarily obscured, either by passing into the shadow of another body or by having another body pass between it and the viewer. An eclipse is the result of either an occultation or a transit. Eclipses are two types, that is the solar or lunar. We'll talk about the Solar eclipse. A solar eclipse occurs when the sun is partly or completely hidden. It happens when, while moving along its orbit, the moon comes in between the sun and the earth and blocks the light of the sun from reaching the earth. The lunar eclipse, and we'll talk about lunar eclipse. Lunar means moon, and a lunar eclipse occurs when the moon is hidden. It happens when, while moving along its orbit around the sun, the earth comes in between the sun and the moon. Lunar eclipses can be total or partial. Now, the factors that cause eclipses are eclipses occur due to the special coincidence of the moon and the sun being in the same angular size. The orbit of the moon around the earth, the orbit of the earth around the sun, the shadow that is formed when sunlight falls on an opaque object. We have finished this chapter. You are requested to go through the chapter once. Have a good day.